Hello, everyone, and welcome to AfterCLIMB. This is the session that happens right after our Climb webinar event every month, where I get to do a deep dive into a part of our product or service. Today, I'm talking about Fineline codes, the Fineline field in our product manager. This is probably the single most important field in product manager, honestly. For those of you that attended January's AfterCLIMB event, I talked about the sales and profit analysis and gross profit, return on investment reporting. This is essential if you want to really take advantage of that reporting. Having a great Fineline structure is essential. And many of you have been bogged down over the years and honestly just lost track of where these products go. So today, I'm going to talk to you about simplifying and making it just that much more powerful for you. So let's just dive right in. So let's talk about the considerations here when you're talking about Fineline structure. The first thing is actually, believe it or not, accounting. Your accountant, your bookkeeper. If you set up your Fineline structure correctly, the top piece of the hierarchy is actually the general ledger account. And if you set this up correctly, you can provide a report to your accountant on a monthly basis that gives the accountant your sales by the general ledger account that they actually post to. So they don't have to do any manual addition, adding departments together, or any of that. If you set it up correctly, you can take care of this for them. The second, the one that I think is most important, is that sales, profit, and return on investment analysis that I talked about back in January. If you haven't watched that, go back and watch it, because that's where you get to decide, make business decisions on what to carry, what not to carry based on real numbers, data from your system. And so if you set up a great Fineline structure, you get to run the reports that give you that valuable information. And then lastly, promotional events. Now, this is something that most people don't think about, and it really is important when it comes to seasonal merchandise. So if you don't carry seasonal merchandise, the promotional event part probably isn't all that important. But if you carry seasonal merchandise, thinking through your Fineline structure for the seasonal products allows you to set up promotional events for clearance sales really, really easily, and it lets you set them up well in advance of the end of the season. So you can set it up weeks or months in advance and forget about it. And when you need that clearance sale to start, it'll just start automatically. So those are really the three considerations when we set this up. Okay, so let's talk basic Fineline hierarchy. Starts with the general ledger account for your accountant. Now the broadest level for looking at your products is the department itself. And in every department, there can be multiple categories. And then in every category, there can be multiple Finelines. So the typical structure that we use is the Homaker structure. Okay, we don't have to use all the same things as Homaker, and I'm going to show you to take and change the Homaker structure for those of you who want to do it. But we're going to use the typical structure, which is XX, YY, or YZ, where XX is the department, then the Y represents the category, and then the Z represents the Fineline. And if you look at it graphically, if we look at this from a flow chart, you'll see that we have the general ledger accounts. And so I'm just using one, but you'll have multiple general ledger accounts. So, and then under every general ledger account, there can be multiple departments. And then under every department, there could be multiple categories. In this case, I have two, but you could have 3, 4, 5, whatever. And then under every category, you can have multiple Fineline codes. And so that's the basic structure that we are going to go with. So now let's talk, what is the first step? So many of you feel really uncomfortable with the structure you have. It's been really hard to maintain. It's been confusing, and you don't think that it's in good condition at all. So maybe it's time to start over. So now you have a lot of experience with the product, or many of you have a lot of experience with the product, and you're saying, I'm not really getting the data that I need, so how do I fix this? So the very first step is to actually sit down and determine what the departments you actually want to have. So I did it in a spreadsheet. You can do it on a piece of paper. For ease of understanding it, I've kept things color-coded to the way that I did the PowerPoint presentation, but it's easy to use spreadsheets for me. So the very, very first thing that you do is you sit down, whether it's on a spreadsheet or whether it's on a piece of paper, and you write out in columns the departments that you want to be able to run reports on. And so this varies for every single store out there. Now, if you only have 100 SKUs, then you probably only need one department, or maybe two, if it's taxable and non-taxable products. But if you have thousands of SKUs and hundreds of vendors, then you may need a lot more departments than the 5 that I've picked. So again, it's just up to you, and specifically what you're looking to be able to report on. So I went with OTC, HBA, food and beverage, gifts, and seasonal. Now, if you have school and office supplies and you have a pretty good sized department of school and office supplies, maybe that's another department you want. If you carry alcoholic beverages, maybe you want a department for alcoholic beverages that's separate from your food and beverage, or maybe alcoholic beverages will be in food and beverage and be a separate category. But you decide based on kind of the size of the departments. What you don't want to do is create so many departments like the Homaker structure has, where you're not carrying hardly any items in that department. You also want to try to avoid miscellaneous departments. Some people really hate them. Some people really love them. Sometimes you just have to have one because some things just don't fit into one of these other departments. Just be careful when you create one of those that you don't end up with thousands of items in there and when you look at your reports, you go, geez, my miscellaneous department outsells all my other departments and I don't know what's in there. So that's kind of those are the things you have to be thinking about. So there's no one size fits all, and there's no only one right answer. There's lots of answers, and it just depends on what your needs are. Now, so very first thing to do, you sit down and you figure out which departments you want to report on. And again, think about this way. I want to know what departments sell the best, have the highest sales, and what department has the highest profits, and which departments are giving me the best return on my investment in my inventory. So if you go, well, I really would like to know that about this, then it probably should be a department. Okay, then once you've got your list of departments, then you can take and say, okay, when I'm looking at my OTC department, if I look at my OTC department and I say, geez, it's not producing enough sales or enough profits, I want to be able to drill down and see where the problems are, where it's doing well, where the problems are. So you can do categories. Once again, you don't want to create a category for a category that only has 1 or 2 items in it, but you can create different categories. So I've chosen in this as an example, cough and cold, pain relief, antacids, laxatives, and then other. Okay, just looking at my store though. Okay, so you may say, well, I've got a bunch of others that I want to add in here. That's fine. Go ahead and add them in there. And again, you want to do it by kind of what the size is. Anytime you do something that's miscellaneous or other, we want to make sure if you do that, you don't want that to be have the highest sales volume and the highest profit, because then it's not giving you enough information. So just be careful about that. And then once you have created your categories, you can decide, do I want to drill down further in cough and cold? Or in any of these categories. And so maybe you have just huge cough and cold and you want to break that down further into, cough medicines and cold formulas out, something, just breaking it down further. If you wanted to do that, and the Hammacher structure does that as an example, so you could use the fine lines in the Hammacher structure, then you can add additional fine lines. If you don't care to break it down further than just simply cough and cold, then you can do exactly what I did here. I just created exactly the same fine lines that I have as categories. Now I'm going to come back to the numbers here in a moment. Okay, I'm going to move over. So I did for my OTC department and my HBA department and my food and beverage department, I have the categories and fine lines are the same as far as the descriptions. Now over in gifts, in my world, I'm selling candles, glassware, and art. Well, I've decided that I sell a lot of candles, and I want to know whether I want to be able to drill down a little bit further than simply comparing in my gift department, being able to compare candles, glassware, and art, which I can do. I can see how they're doing. But when I get to candles, I want to be able to see how I do with votives versus tapers versus pillars. So I now have fine lines for those. For glassware and art, I don't care to drill down any further. So my fine line matches my category. Now, let's talk about the numbering scheme, because we're going to come over here and I'm going to ask you to think about what the numbering scheme would be. I'll tell you what it is, and then you'll know whether or not you're understanding it. So in our current structure, for those of you that are using the Hammacher structure, if you're in a Starlight system, you have a very, very basic, fine line structure, because you have a smaller front end. But if you're in the Star Plus system where you're using the Hammacher structure, then 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, all of those numbers, department numbers, are already taken. So what I've done is I've said all of my new numbers are going to start with an N. I just used N because it stood for new in my mind. You could use A, you could use Z, you could use whatever you want, but I just went ahead and used N. And this way, when I put these new departments, categories, and fine lines in, they'll be new. There won't be any duplication. I don't have to worry about that. So I went with N01 for OTC, N02 for HBA, N03 for food and beverage, and so forth. And again, keeping in mind that the department is represented by the first two digits, right? 01, 02, 03, 04, so forth. So now my categories add one more digit, that third digit. So now I'm breaking down cough and cold, pain relief, antacids, and laxatives. So I've got N01 representing the department, and then 1 representing the category. So cough and cold is N011, pain relief N012, antacids, laxative N01, the department, and then the category 3, and so forth. And you can see doing the same thing here. Now, the fine line adds that additional digit, the fourth digit. So the fine lines that I add are going to be N0110, N0120, because I'm picking up that third digit representing the category. Now I've chosen to do zeros at the end here simply because I'm not doing, there's going to be no differentiation. There's not going to be any additional fine lines. The category and the fine line are going to be the same description, and I'm not doing anything further. It doesn't really matter what you put, though. You could put a 1 here, a 2 here, whatever you want. It's just got to be something, it'll be unique. Okay. Now, with that said, over here, when you look at, so in this case, I've got the candles, which I'm drilling down further. I want to be able to drill down further. So now I've got N041, which represents candles. And then for votives, I put a 1 at the end. For tapers, I put a 2 at the end. And for pillars, I put a 3 at the end. So let's go up here. So for Valentines, I've got 4 seasonal times that I carry merchandise, seasonal merchandise. So Valentine's is one of them. So what do you think that the numbering scheme should be for that? N051. Okay. And then this one is going to be N052. And this one is going to be N053. And of course, this one would then be N054. Okay, so now I'm not going to, so we're not drilling down further with Valentines, so that would be N0510, 4th of July N0520, summer N0530. But let's get down now where we're drilling down further. So what would this one be? So you should have come up with N054 for the category, and then 1 for the Fineline. And then this one will be N054 for the category, and then 2 for the Fineline. And then finally, N054 for the category, and 3 for the Fineline. Okay, so you do this. This is the very, very first step. Okay, once you have this done, you can move on to this next step. Now let's talk about the timing of all of this so that you understand that. First of all, you're all busy and you all have a business to run. You all have other things to do. So you just break this up into steps. This is step 1. You can't do any of the other things I'm going to show until this is done. So take the time to think this one through and build this out in advance. Build this chart out in advance, because this is the chart you're going to use to do the next step, which is to actually create these departments, categories, and Finelines within the system. Okay, so that's step 1. Now we're going to go to the POS system. Now, I left out the GL editor, so I'm just going to show you the GL editor here and what I have set up for sales. There's a bunch of GL accounts that are used in other places, but for sales, I have, for my pharmacy, I'm monitoring prescription sales, and then non-prescription taxable sales, and non-prescription non-taxable sales. I've seen this many times in pharmacies that's all the account is, that's all they're booking in their accounting system. Many of you are booking a lot more than that. Again, these account numbers are account numbers from an accounting system, so you can use the exact account numbers that your accountant uses with the exact descriptions, and then you can, when you set up the Fineline structure, the department of Fineline structures, you'll see in a moment, if you set it up properly, then you can simply run reports at the end of every month that give the sales for all those general ledger accounts. Very simple and saves a little bit of time. Okay, so that would be the first step, setting that up. Now we're going to go to the next step, which is the department editor. And in the department editor, you have all these departments already, but you're going to go in and add your new departments. Now, I took the liberty of adding the new departments for my system to save a little bit of time. And so I went in and clicked add. And when I clicked add, this screen comes up and I put in N01 and I put in OTC in here. And then I picked that general ledger account 40100 for taxable sales. And then I clicked add. Okay, so you would do that for all of your departments. Now, I'm going to bypass talking about taxes and taxable sales until the very end. It does add a little bit of a level of complexity you have to think through, but I will talk about that at the end. So I'm going to assume, like a lot of states, like the state of Washington, it's pretty straightforward. Very seldom, very, very few situations where you have product that crosses departments that are taxable versus non-taxable. But that does happen, and some of you will have to deal with that, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay, so I set up my departments first. Then the next step is to go to the category editor. Remember, you've created the list. You've even given all of it numbering schemes. So I did that. I came over here, and now I have set up for my first department, my OTC department. I've set up the category codes for the OTC department. So I've got the cough and cold. Same thing. Click add. It's going to ask you the code, the description, and then instead of the general ledger account, it's going to ask you for the department. Well, your code obviously has the department in it, right? So N01, 011, means department 01, so you can go, or department N01, so you just pick it here. So that's what you end up with. And then you can see, here's my category, here's my code for my category, here's the description of the category, and then there's the department that it's in. Now I went ahead and did that just for the first category, cough and cold, or for OTC. I'm not setting the other ones up because we don't have the time to go through all of that, but I want to get this all set up for you. Now the next step, once you have your categories set up, is then to go to your Fineline editor. And I set all those up as well. I'm going to take this. Some of you remember Promotions Unlimited, so I have Promotions Unlimited codes in here as well. But here are the Fineline codes for the OTC department. Sorry, lost my train of thought. So here are the Fineline codes for the OTC department. So now we have all of these things set up. Now I do want to point out something about the Fineline codes. Unlike the department and categories, there's a few extra fields in the Fineline code. So for those of you that use target margins, you can set a target margin here. All of these fields we're going to talk about, when you set these will become the defaults, and any new item added in Star Plus through either universal import or manually, when you put it in to the Fineline code, it pulls whatever is already defaulted here in the Fineline code. Otherwise, you have to set those things manually. So for those of you in target margins, this is where you would put it. If you're selling alcohol or tobacco and the minimum age restriction isn't, you're using that feature, then you can put the age here. If you're using inventory control, then you choose the appropriate inventory control. The item itself, we update your system automatically with FSA eligible items, so you don't need to deal with that. But this one is a big one, sales tax. So you want to make sure that if this Fineline code has taxable, that you have the taxable checked. Okay. So that's it. You do that, you get you've got them all set up, and now you're ready for the next step. And the next step is to start moving product from an existing Fineline, or some product that's in your system with a Fineline that you want to get rid of, into the correct Fineline that you've now created. And remembering that in Product Manager, the only field that is there is the Fineline field. Okay, so what do we do? Well, at this point, we just go to the Product Manager. And at this point, we go ahead and hit F12 or F11, either one, because we want to get to the other screen, and we want to go into the block editor. So we go into the block editor, and the way the block editor works, and I've shown this before, but for those of you who haven't seen this before, the block editor, when it opens, all the fields in the Product Manager here, and you can select any ones that you want to change. Now it remembers what you had selected the last time in case you want to come back and do more work. So I had already selected that I want to change the Fineline field. So I can come back in here. So I don't do anything else at this point, but if a Fineline hadn't been selected, then I would simply click on it to select it. Now all I do is click Load Items. So at this point, I want to load the items that I want to move. Now in my example, so this is the selection criteria. This is where you say, how am I going to figure out the items that I want to move? And so you can do it by vendor, by existing fine line, by existing category, by existing department. You could do it by barcode range, which can be helpful when you're doing, which can be useful if you're doing something from a specific manufacturer. You can even do description. Like for instance, on a candles example, if you know that you have pillar in the description of your candles with the pillar candles, then you could just put pillar here and contains, and it'll find all of those. So there, whatever you need to do, this is where you go to figure out. This is where you drill down to the items that you want to actually move into this Fineline code. So I'm going to actually say I'm going to go by department in this case, and I'm going to click next. And it's going to be in the list of departments. Okay, so prior to you coming in to this meeting earlier today, I actually moved some things already, but I'm going to show you. I'm going to go ahead and take pain relief because I haven't done anything with pain relief. So let's go ahead and go pain relief, and when I do that, this is now finding all of the items that are in your system that are under the Department 01 pain relief. And here they all are. I can click select. I click next. It'll load them, and I click OK. And now it's going to take me into the project manager, back to the project manager. I'm in the block edit mode. It takes me to it has highlighted in green the field I'm supposed to change. And I want to change to one of the new Fineline codes. So I can click on the three dots there. I'll go down here to where my new Fineline codes are, the ones that start with an N. And there's my new pain relief Fineline code. Remember, I have it in the department is the OTC department, and I have the category of pain relief, and I'm my Fineline. I just want all pain relief to be in this pain relief Fineline. So I simply click that, click OK. So I've got that new Fineline, and all I do is click next. And when I click next, you'll see it start updating. Now it's going through all of those items that was in the previous grid, and it's updating them to all be part of this new Fineline. And it'll just take a moment for that to happen. And when it's finished with that, then you could do a couple of different things. You could go and do another grouping of product. I like to take this one step at a time. And so now we're done with this. Because it comes back, it's not doing the updating. When it comes back here, you're done. Now, I like to just go and say, it's time to help continue cleaning things up. So I'm going to delete all of the Finelines, all of the categories, and and then the department 01 pain relief, because there's nothing in there. So we start with, you have to start with the Fineline editor. So we go to the Fineline editor. And we have all of these Finelines that are in Department 01. So all you have to do is click delete. And then I just hit the enter key because it defaults to yes. Whoops. Okay, so what that error means is that there's actually still an item in that Fineline, which there shouldn't be. Rather than deal with that right now, I'm going to delete the rest of these, make sure there's not any others that have an item left, and then I'll show you actually how to find the item and correct it. So let's go to the next one down. We'll click delete, hit enter, and it'll delete it. Enter, just keep deleting all of the anything that has a 01 in front, you want to delete it. So I'm going to go back up here to, there we go. I skipped that one. Now this will take a few minutes to do, but because I want to show you deleting all of the categories as well, I'm going to take the time to do this. Okay, so now we got to when I tried to delete this one, notice I was not paying close enough attention, and it's 0311, so it's not 01 fine. It's not in department 01, and it didn't let me delete it because department 03 has items in it. So you can't accidentally delete something that you shouldn't be deleting, so you don't have to worry about that. And that was a really good example of me just going fast and not realizing I had already finished up all of the Finelines in Department 01. So just so you see it again, here's the message. I click delete. I say yes. It's going to come up and say the selected entry cannot be deleted. That means that that there's still a product in it. Okay, so now all you have to do to find the product is go to Product Reports. And under the general reports, go to the report builder. And simply pick the product detail report. Click next. We know that it's just that one fine line, so we're going to say we want to look at the selected fine lines. We don't want to skip anything. Here's the one fine line, and it's the only one we have left. Click next. We're just going to preview the report. We print that report, and you see there's one item. Now I'm going to write this down so I can delete it. 029220. Go into the product manager. I'm not going to delete the item. I'm just going to move it to the correct Fineline code. Okay, and this one we wanted to go to okay, and this one we wanted to go to pay and relieve. So this is the one. And we click save. Okay, and now we're fixed. Now we can go to the back to the Fineline Editor, and we should be able to delete this one now. So now all of our fine lines are deleted. Now we go to the category editor. It's in alphabetical order. Go to the category editor. And we want to delete all the 01 fine lines. There's only a handful here, so same thing, delete, enter, delete, enter, delete, enter, delete, enter. All my categories, my 01 categories are gone. And now we go to the department editor. And we can delete this department. Okay, so now we're done with one department. So some of you are saying this is going to take forever. Well, it's going to take time depending on the size of your store, without a doubt. But here's the thing: you do not have to do this all at one time. You can do exactly what I just did in this demo. Now I've taken a lot of extra time, but just think about how little time it took me once I sat down, step one, sit down and create all your departments, then add your categories, then your fine lines on a piece of paper or on a spreadsheet. When you have that done, step two is to enter all of those new department categories and fine lines into the system. When that's done, the next step is going to the product manager and doing the block editor. And if you only can spend 15 minutes a day, you can easily get one one fine line, 1 or 2 fine lines done in 15 minutes. And again, it's just you taking the time and scheduling a little bit of time periodically to do it until it's done. And then, as you add new items, make sure that you're adding them to the new structure. So yes, it takes some time. And then again, it varies by the size of your store, obviously, but it's well worth the reward after the fact is huge in your ability to do a better job of making business decisions based on actual data. Okay, so one thing I mentioned was I wasn't going to talk about taxes till the very end. Taxes can add one additional level of complexity, especially if a department has taxable and non-taxable items in it. So in the event that a department has taxable and non-taxable items, then the most and you're providing reporting to your accountant using the general ledger functionality that I talked about, where you remember in my hierarchy I had prescription sales, taxable sales, and non-taxable prescription or non-taxable sales. If you're doing that, then you'll need to have, if there is a department that has both taxable and non-taxable, then in that department, you should create 2 departments for that department. One, so if you have OTCs, like some of my examples are N01 that are taxable and some that are non, then I would do a department N01 and then a department N01N for non-taxable or NT for non-taxable, and then I would do a category that whatever categories the non-taxable items fell in, I would do a category for non-taxable, and then I would do a fine line for non-taxable. That way, it all reports correctly back to that general ledger account. If you're not utilizing the general ledger account, then that part doesn't really matter. But if you have questions on that, just give us a call and we'd be happy to talk you through on that. Okay, thank you very, very much. We really appreciate you attending. I appreciate you all being here. So many of you come back regularly. I hope you find this very valuable, and we look forward to working with you. Have a great day.